One of my big things that takes me out of flow is the feeling that there's not enough time. George, you've got to work harder, you've got to be more productive. And also these ideas of there not being enough time. So, yeah, there's kind of impatience. And one of, the big things that I'm still working on and, getting deeper with and feeling more grounded in is my ability to do big action in an ease and in a flow and in a joy. So you'll know the concept Wu Wei literally translates as non-action, but isn't to be confused with literally doing nothing. Nature does so much amazing stuff, all the plants behind me, without forcing, without worrying, without the idea that there's not enough time, and yet so much is achieved. And so these ideas of Wu Wei doesn't mean that we just don't do anything. If your nature feels that there are things you want to do, then Wu Wei, the teachings of Wu Wei doesn't say don't do it. Instead, it's can you navigate those things that you want to do with an ease, without forcing, with a joy. So the aspiration for me is to do all these things that I'm passionate about with as much ease and with as much flow as possible. And specifically, I talked about how this scarcity of time is something that takes me out of my flow, feeling like I've got to do more because the planet's burning. And how do we ease with that scarcity of time? What is time? Let's get deep. We like to get deep here. What is time? So, on your spiritual journey and your journey of self-discovery, you've probably come across the idea that there's only now, the eternal unfolding now. Yesterday exists only in memories that are being recalled in the present moment, and tomorrow are just imaginations, constructs of what might happen that are happening in our minds. So the past and the future, they are both constructed by our minds in the present moment, and there's only the eternal unfolding now. And something about this eternal unfolding now is that it's not measurable. It's not like a moment is 1 microsecond, and then like the moments are added together, and then that creates a lifetime. Instead, it's a flow. It's indivisible. You can't get to like the now isn't a point of time. You can't get to that specific instance. Time isn't blocks, like lorries that are in a row together, and that's time stretching out. No, it's a flow, so you can't break time down. So, when I talk about this feeling of not having enough time, that is a metaphor, because I have constructed time as a resource, something that we can have more or less of, something that can disappear. So there's not enough time. That's like me imagining time as, all these little segments that I can add up and measure, when in fact, that's not how time works. Time is a flow unfolding in the present moment. And there are cultures around the world that don't have the idea that time is a resource. That's pretty wild, right? There are cultures that don't see time as something that you can have that can run away from you. And some indigenous American cultures have the idea of time sickness. It's kind of like homesickness, is that when you are thinking too much about time, an illness develops. And that sounds familiar, right? If you felt this idea of scarcity, that there's not enough time. It's almost a disconnection from the truth of our being, which is that, we're here in the unfolding, eternal now, and there is no scarcity there because it can't be measured. And yet, when we have time sickness, we feel the pain from that idea, that metaphor that we've constructed in our minds that there's not enough time. So time is a flow, not a thing that can be measured. And our experience of time is very different from the measurement. So even if we say, okay, well, sometimes we need to measure in order to say, how long am I going to go on holiday for? It's important to see that as a metaphor, as a useful model, but not time itself, distinguishing between the words that we use and the concepts we create around time and time itself. Because you'll know that when you're in flow, time seems to flow effortlessly. There's a joy, there's an ease, there isn't an idea of scarcity. And time seems to go quickly, and yet when you look back, you think, wow, okay, actually I did a lot there. If we contrast that to constantly being thinking about, there's not enough time, am I going to do this all in time? Am I going to get this ready for this meeting? Suddenly, that time, because we're focusing on it, goes really, really slowly in a not enjoyable way. And the actual joy of life escapes us because we're focusing on time as a concept, as something that we can have more or less of. And so when we get out of our own way, these thoughts that we construct in our minds that give us pain, when we get out of our own way, then that is when this wu-wei state of nature comes to us. We are in flow and we can allow the universe to support us. All of these thoughts for me of, oh, there's not enough time, got to work harder, that is a waste of energy. And that's actually me not being in my wisdom. That's me getting in my own way. And that's a skill, something that comes with time, something for you to explore. So, having an idea of time, an idea of tomorrow, an idea of yesterday is really important for us to navigate our complex human lives. So it's not that we just let go of time as a thing that can be measured, but the awareness that we are choosing to measure it. We are choosing to buy into this idea that time is a model, time is a resource that we can have more or less of. So then that brings back the power, where this urgency that we may be feeling is something that we create for ourselves because of this metaphor that we are empowering. So if we are aware of that, then we can choose when to use time so it serves us, and then when to let go and to be in the flow and to be carried down by the ever-unfolding river of the Tao and the unfolding time. So yeah, sometimes that time with ourselves, the emptiness practice, doing our meditation practice every day, is not selfishness. In fact, that's actually how we can then do more in the unfolding now with more energy and more joy. Sunrise, sunset, the eternal cycles that we base our time on. If we think about even 700 years ago, for most human beings, time was the rising of the sun reaching its apex in the sky and then setting for the evening, and we would base time on that rhythm. So it wasn't something that was measured. Perhaps, you could count the number of days, but we didn't have the concept of hours. And certainly for most people, we didn't live by the concept of hours. It was only in the medieval ages, when church bells began to ring every hour, that then we began to have this rhythm of time. And then with the Industrial Revolution, with factory work and capitalism, say in Manchester or Bristol, the factory owners would build these large terraced housing developments where all the workers could live, and the factories would ring the bells, ding, 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 in order to get all the factory workers up for their shift, and then ding, 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 ringing the bell again for the next shift to come on. So then, as human beings, we began to become more and more regimented to this construct of time. And now, with our phones, we have our time with us wherever we go all the time. And so much of our lives are based around not only hours, but minutes and seconds. It wasn't always like that. And if you've gone into nature and switched all your technology off and gone camping, and you found that freedom to just wake up when you wake up, maybe with the birds, and to just relax into not knowing the time, that's a wonderful gift and something to remember is possible for all of us. And see, sharing deadlines are also difficult to discern if I'm not meeting a deadline, mainly because of me and I need to improve, or was the problem beyond me? So deadlines and routines. So the wisdom of the yin-yang invites us to remember that there's no simple answers. And as we've been talking about, time can be useful deadlines can be useful, and also it's a construct that we choose to believe, and so remembering that we can let go of that construct. So routine and deadlines aren't necessarily bad in themselves. Like if we think about the monks living in monasteries, they wake up at the same time every day, they have their rice meals at the same time every day, they clean the temple halls at the same time every day, they do chanting at the same time every day. And so that routine allows them to flow into their day because they know what they're doing when. And it means that 100, 200 monks can work together based on that schedule. So, there's Taoist practitioners using routines and in some ways deadlines. And for us, with the things that we want to do, sometimes setting a deadline with enough softness, it's not beating ourselves up if we don't meet it, but sometimes, okay, by the end of the week, I want to get this thing done, is a good thing for us to concentrate our energy, to empty out the other distractions and to focus on doing the things that really serve us and the things that we're passionate about. This time that we have is precious, and I don't want to spend it scrolling through Instagram because Silicon Valley engineers have made it so addictive that I can't stop. Our time is precious. Can we train ourselves to drop into the things that resonate with us, to give us time to share our gifts? Maybe that work, we earn money, but if we do that well enough, then we have time to focus on our gifts. And with time, we can, get deeper into those gifts as something that's intrinsically enjoyable, or we could maybe earn money from that in smaller or bigger ways. So time is precious, and I'm not against that productivity world, but it just needs to be held with the right softness. So remembering the yin yang, cool, deadlines, exploring productivity, if that resonates, great, but also giving yourself the permission to just be, letting go of all of that and not to use it as a stick to beat yourself up against. This is the hustle culture, the productivity, and it's out of balance because they don't balance it with rest and acknowledging that, we have permission just to be. A lot of the Taoist teachings talk about how, a Taoist may seem empty, dumb, an idiot, wandering like a unmoored boat on the sea with no direction. There's lots of metaphors used in the Tao Te Ching and in the Zhuangzi talking about how stupid Taoists may appear. And they're basically saying that to give you permission to just be yourself and to not feel this constant desire to improve and be someone else and be enough because of the things that you do. We're human beings, not human doings. Human beings. So you have permission to be who you want to be. You have permission to do nothing. And then if you'd like to, exploring time and discipline and deadlines.